as is normal, today's meeting will be recorded. Can I also welcome any members of the public and press to today's meeting? Can I kindly ask you to observe the meeting only and not to speak or participate? I would also like to welcome some members of the Education, Skills and Cabinet Scrutiny Committee who have been invited to observe the Education through Regional Working Consortium Developments report. Please can I remind you all to switch your phones to silent for the duration of the meeting. And also in addition, can I refer you to the protocols for remote meetings which have been previously circulated, which you obviously now should be aware of. Namely, your microphone should be switched to mute unless you are speaking. Should you wish to ask a question or make a comment, can you please indicate either by the chat function or by raising your electronic hand via Teams. I will assume that you've all read the paperwork before us today prior to the meeting. Also, please only use the chat function to indicate if you wish to speak as an alternative to the electronic hand or to raise any technical issues. When asking a question, please, if possible, can you indicate which page number you are referring to? The first item on the agenda is to do a roll call. I'm Councillor Mike Harvey, the chair, and I'm obviously present. I now call on Charlotte, Democratic Services Officer, to take the roll call. Charlotte, please.
Yes, Chair. So I've got you down as present. So Councillor Cypher Harman.
Present.
Karen Freegard.
Present.
Councillor Nigel Hint. Councillor Nigel Hint. No. Councillor Steve Hint.
I'm here, Charlotte.
Councillor Dennis Keogh.
Present.
Councillor Simon Niall.
I'm here, Charlotte. Thank you.
Councillor Alan Llewellyn.
Present, Charlotte. Present.
Councillor Sandra Miller.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Rydian Maisen.
Present, no, Charlotte. Present.
Adele Morgan.
Yeah, present, no.
Suzanne Paddison.
Present.
Councillor Lynette Purcell.
Present.
Councillor Sheila Penry.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Sonia Reynolds.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Arwyn Wilcock.
Present, no, Cadeirydd. Present, Chair.
Chair, and before I move on to Cabinet members, I also want to just go through a few of the education members. So have we got Councillor Joe Hale?
Present, Charlotte.
Rob Wood?
Present.
Councillor Dave Whiterock?
Present, thank you, Charlotte.
Suzanne Renkes?
Present.
And then co-opted member Marie Caddick? Marie? No. Co-opted member Linda Newman?
Present, Charlotte.
Thank you. Is that all the education members that aren't sitting on Cabinet Scrutiny this morning? Yeah. And then we also have in attendance observing the meeting chair, Councillor Sean Percy.
Yeah, present, thank you.
And Councillor Wyndham Griffiths.
Present, Charlotte. Thank you.
And then if I move on to Cabinet members, Councillor Edward Latham.
Yeah, present, Charlotte.
Councillor Carol Clement Williams.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Doreen Jones.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Alan Lockyer.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Peter Rees.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Peter Richards.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Annette Wingrave.
Present now, Charlotte.
Councillor Leanne Jones.
Present, Charlotte.
Thank you. I can see that Councillor Dennis Keogh's hand is up.
Yes, Charlotte, just to say that besides being a Cabinet Scrutiny member, I'm also a member of the Education Scrutiny Committee.
Yeah, not a problem. Thank you. And then if I just move on to officers, Karen Jones.
Present.
Howell Jenkins.
Present.
Aled Evans.
Present.
Andrew Jarrett.
Yeah, present, Charlotte.
Nicola Pierce,
Present Charlotte.
Andrew Thomas,
Present Charlotte.
James,
Present Charlotte.
Ray Griffiths,
Present Charlotte.
Chloe Plowman,
Present Charlotte.
Woodman Ralph.
Present.
Officers that are participating in this meeting that I've missed? No. Are there any members that are participating in this meeting that I've missed? No. Then Chair, that's everyone. Thank you.
That's lovely, thank you. Okay. Item 2, Chair's announcement. For the information of Cabinet and officers, today we've chosen a scrutiny committee to scrutinise items 7, 9, 11 and 12 on the Cabinet agenda. Also, I'd just like to make members of scrutiny and members of the public aware that on item 8 on the Cabinet agenda, it states that it is a 3-day call-in period. However, this is being amended to read immediate implementation. So that's item 8, which we're not scrutinising anywhere. Item 3 on Cabinet scrutiny is declarations of interest. I have one myself, item 11, on page 102, the Police and Crime Commissioners mentioned regarding council tax, and also it's mentioned on page 178 of item 11 in terms of tax settings. The police mentioned there, I work for South Wales Police, so they're my declarations of interest. Anybody else got any declarations of interest, please? No, I don't see any. Okay. Item 4 on the agenda, minutes of the previous meetings. These are on pages 3 to 10 on the Cabinet scrutiny papers. The minutes of the meeting on the 3rd of February 2021 and therefore approval. Could I have a proposer, please?
I propose, Chair.
A seconder?
I second.
Okay. Are we all for that, or anybody not happy with those minutes? If they could show a hand, please. No. So those minutes are passed as correct. Then item 5, pre-decision scrutiny, to select appropriate items from the Cabinet agenda for pre-decision scrutiny of the Cabinet reports. And as I've said, the items we've decided to scrutinise are 7, 9, 11 and 12. So the first item we go into is item 7, which is ERU, the Education through Regional Working Consortium developments. Unless officers have got anything to add, then we'll go straight to questions. And the first question today is from Councillor Alan Llewellyn, please. Alan?
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I don't want to ask any questions about the structure of ERO and so on. We've had that discussion before. I just wanted to ask for a commentary from the relevant officers. ERO provided various training courses and information to educational practitioners, so therefore teachers and teaching assistants and governors at all levels. Can I ask for a commentary on what has replaced that provision since we withdrew from ERO?
Okay, thanks for that. See there's a hand up. Is that Mr. Evans, please? Aled Evans?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, more than happy to provide that commentary. As you will be aware, we provide our own school improvement services to schools. So the activities such as the core visit, to which chairs of governors are invited, that is undertaken by our ESOs, who are now the education support officers. The support then for curriculum development is also provided via our school improvement staff. However, we do have opportunities for schools to share practice and to ensure they benefit from each other in terms of learning as they go along. We do have a number of pioneer schools who have been involved in the development of the curriculum since the outset, and their experiences are also brought to bear in terms of sharing those experiences. We run our own governor support programs, and I'm sure that many of you who are governors at schools will be aware and will have benefited from those. We do commission, or we buy in a number of leadership programs, and those would be national leadership programs such as the NPQH. There's also programs for middle leadership and so forth, and we buy in those from ERU currently. Does that answer the question, Councillor Llewellyn?
Yes, Chair. I'll just say that I chair the governors at one of the pioneer schools, and it's been fascinating. I have to say, being part of developing the new curriculum, and I do very much appreciate the support that the school improvement service has been providing to us in that respect. So I'm quite confident about the quality of the support that we're getting internally from the county. I suppose it was that aspect of where we need to learn from outside the county, and in development of not just the new national curriculum but any other educational initiatives. Alan just mentioned that currently we buy in from ERU. Now, that service may not be there for much longer, but I look at the report that we got before us this afternoon. So are we confident that, having withdrawn from ERU, we've obviously got resources to bring back in-house, that we can actually identify the range of national and international expertise that we need in order to fully develop our educational service beyond this current period?
As far as the purchasing or procurement of programs from ERU, we have had that discussion with them, and as you will be aware from the report, there are ongoing regional discussions regarding a possible amended or modified footprint, and we we would be looking to purchase the leadership programs from that footprint. Otherwise we could turn to Central South Consortium, which is again on our doorstep via Bridgend and the other authorities there. But I think you are right. We are. It's a case of ensuring that the quality of what's being delivered is in line with our aspiration. We have developed a curriculum advisory group, and that is not just school practitioners, but it's also benefiting from people within the community who run their own businesses, from our environment directorate, because it's understanding how the skills that are being developed at a school level are actually benefiting youngsters in terms of their future work prospects and the skill demands that will be in place over the next 10 to 15 years, and to ensure that those youngsters are equipped with those skills, but also are aware of those opportunities. And I'm confident that the opportunities via the City Deal, we've also been doing some work around the creative industry. We had a very successful curriculum convention where we had local companies who are involved in the production of television programs for S4C, and nationally. Bang, for instance, has been sold to a number of countries across the world. So I think it's a case of understanding that there are opportunities for young people through the development of the curriculum, not only for learning's sake, but also for employment's sake as well. And I'm sure that under the leadership of Andrew Thomas and other officers, we will continue to look beyond the borders of Neath Talbot to ensure that we understand what the demand is going forward, but secondly, that we have this sense of radar as to what sort of skills youngsters need over the next 10 to 15 years.
Okay, Councillor Fry.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. Thanks, Chair. Obviously, we'll want to follow the progress of this as time goes on. Diolch yn fawr.
Okay, thanks for that. I got Chair of the Education Committee, Councillor Sonia Reynolds with a hand up, please. Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make it clear to those involved in this discussion that the Education Committee has been and will continue to receive updates on the whole situation as we move forward, some of which is mentioned here, and that we are we quite happy to have visitors to our committee of other councillors who are interested in this. So Councillor Llewellyn, you're very welcome to attend, and we will be looking at some point at the school improvement programme going forward.
Okay, thanks for that. I got two other.
Thank you for that invitation, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that, Sonia. And I got two other indications. Firstly, Councillor Rydian Maisen and Councillor Susan Paddison. So, Councillor Maisen, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, if I just could clarify for me, it's just something, excuse my ignorance, then. It's the Swansea and Carmarthenshire withdrawal, the rescinding withdrawal notice. Is it purely because they think that the consortium will be gone anyway in August?
Mr. Evans.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, I can see that the Chief Exec has put her hand up, so I'm going to defer to Karen unless she wants me to answer that.
I'm sure you were probably going to say the same as I, Aled. My understanding, Councillor Maisen, is that the notices to withdraw were rescinded because they were unable to complete the legal processes within the timescale that they were originally looking at. So there's nothing more than that, as I understand it, behind the change in the timescale.
Okay,
thanks for that. Mr. Evans, have you got anything to add to Karen's reply?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, thanks. And then Councillor Susan Paddison, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question is on page 22. It's the bottom, the financial impacts. I note that officers have written requesting information regarding redundancy liability, and I was just wondering if you had any idea when you may receive an answer for that.
We haven't had. Sorry, Chair, are you happy for me to answer?
Yes, certainly, you go ahead.
Sorry. We haven't had an indication as to when we'll have that breakdown, and obviously we will be, reminding them of that. However, I think there is considerable work that is ongoing at the moment regarding the potential reconfiguration of ERU, and that may mitigate some of those redundancy costs. So it's a case of working with regional colleagues to understand that redundancy liability, and not only the actual costs, but how it could be mitigated going forward.
Thank you, Aled, and I'm sure we'll get an update in due course. Thanks very much, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that. Anybody else got any questions on this subject, please? Item 7. No, I don't see any indications.
Chair, I don't know whether Councillor Reynolds is hand
sorry,
up.
I can see that a hand just got. Councillor Renkes, please.
I'm sorry, Councillor Harvey, I didn't actually mention this in the pre-briefing, but I'm just wondering what has been the response from the Welsh Government of us withdrawing from ERU? I know they rely on some kind of regional working for funding. Are they going to continue to fund us?
Mr. Evans, please.
Yes, the answer to that is that we have, for the current financial year, received unilateral funding of the what's known as the RCSIG. So that is the Regional Consortium School Improvement Grant, and that will also be delivered for next financial year.
Okay, thanks for that. And then Councillor Nigel Thomas Hunt, please. Nigel?
Thanks, Mike. Just a quick one for Aled, really. Do we think that this was a prudent decision, or do we find regret in leaving Eru?
Oh, prudent.
Well, you know, yeah, that's fine. I think what's most important in our discussions is, are we delivering the support that our schools need? And if you look at the school improvement profile of our schools, we have one of the best, if not the best, school improvement profile across the whole of Wales. And I measure that by the number of schools that have gone into an Esting category. We are one of the lowest across the whole of Wales. We've got 2 schools in Esting Review and no schools whatsoever in what is known as a statutory category, either in need of significant improvement or special measures. If you also look at our data in terms of our categorisation, that is also very positive and one of the best across Wales. So in that sense, Councillor Hunt, I think it vindicates the decisions that we've taken. But as school improvement practitioners, I think it's a case of always being reflective of what the needs of our schools are. And it's certainly understanding going forward from the position we are in currently. You know, we're all aware that we've been in a position where schools have largely been closed for 12 months. There was a period in May through to June when they were open for a limited amount of pupils. And similarly, they were open in the early part of September through to about mid-November. But again, there was significant disruption in our school settings during that period because of the demands of self-isolation. So it's a case of asking ourselves, how do we as a council, how do we as a local authority and as a service ensure that we are delivering against those needs? We are starting to have feedback from schools around some of the issues that youngsters are presenting with as they return to school. We've also had reports from the Health Authority regarding an increase in eating disorders among children and young people. So I think we do need to work very closely together with our health colleagues, with children's services, to plan and deliver a recovery programme that will be able to be agile enough to understand what those issues are, but also to deliver against those issues. We certainly welcome, I'm sure some of you will have heard from the Education Minister that there is additional funding being made available to support recovery, and that funding needs to reach the classroom where hopefully we can compensate for those experiences, very unfortunate experiences that youngsters have had over the past 12 months.
Okay, thanks for that. And then last indication I got is Councillor Sandra Miller, please. Sandra.
Thank you, Chair. I would fully support Aled in his comments there on how our schools are performing right across the county borough. I can give you an example of the school that I chair. It's in significantly high deprived area, and yet we had an Esting report that was really good. Very proud of the outcomes there, and of course our usual meetings with the ESOs are very good, very stringent, I have to say. And as a school, we've come out as green, which is an excellent result. considering the area that we live in and the types of children that we have to support, I would wholly support the officers in their responses. Equally, it is incumbent on all of us to take part in our schools to ensure that the education is optimum, and that is by joining in with activities when we're able, obviously, and of course, if we governors to ensure that we hold the head teacher to account and not just do the nodding procedures. You know, it's important that we do that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that. I see Councillor Reynolds, Chair of the Education, got a hand up. Sonia, please.
I just wanted to comment that I have said before, and I'll say it again here, that staff in schools and in the council have moved mountains in this last period from the updates that I've seen and heard, and I have been very impressed with what's managed to happen in our schools. Parents also, all the ones that contact me locally, have been very impressed with how schools have managed and how schools have been managed, and there's been a lot of feedback from schools about what that support from the authority has been like. So I think things, whilst it's the children have suffered, I think things have been as good as they can be within the circumstances. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, I think as many of us would agree with your comments there. Councillor Hunt, is that an old hand, please, Nigel?
Yes, Mike, it is an old hand. It seems to me that we're rejecting regional work in there, but it's an old hand.
Okay, thanks for that. Anybody else got any questions or comments on this, please? No, I don't see any. Okay, in respect to this, the recommendation for this is on page 24, and I say this item is just for the information and no decision, just for noting. So that concludes that item, and I say if members of the Education Committee obviously want to leave now, then fine, or you could stay to watch the rest of this meeting. Next item we decided to scrutinise was item 9, Budget Update and Monitoring Report 2020 to 2021. Unless officers have got anything to add in the pre-decision scrutiny, we had 2 indications for questions on this item. And the first one's from Councillor Alan Llewellyn, please. Alan?
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I just wanted to ask the officers for a commentary on the end of year outturn and the potential £1.2 million near enough underspend, and how that will be. We anticipate being in a very difficult year. We have had a difficult year, and I'd like to commend all of the financial staff and the departmental officers for the way in which they've managed the budgets during the course of the year. There's been a huge amount of uncertainty for obvious reasons, but I'd just like to ask for a commentary on the end of year outturn, the likely £1.2 million underspend, and how that will be treated going forward.
Okay, Mr. Jenkins, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. In terms of page 60 of the papers, shows Appendix 3, which is the appendix on the General Reserve. As you can see, the projected underspend for the year is 1.19 million, and that is going into the General Reserve in that revised estimate column, meaning that the projected reserve balance at the end of March 21 will be 19.845 million. So the proposal is that it'll go into the general reserves at year end, if that's where it ends up, because we've still got a number of weeks to go before the end of the year, and there will be a final report coming in front of members once we have closed the books, probably in early June, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that. Apparently my camera... Yeah, go on, Alan.
Sorry, thanks very much for that, Chair. So obviously that £1.2 million is something that we can, pending any final reports in June, as they say, but it is something that we can take into account when we are considering the revenue budget for the next financial year, which we'll have to do today and tomorrow.
Chair, in terms of that, it's already in this report, and as that report is going, this report and the budget reports are in front of Cabinet today and Council tomorrow. It has been factored into both the projected outturn report here and the Council tax budget reports for tomorrow. So it's already included in all the reports in front of members today.
Okay, thanks. Apparently my camera, so I've been informed, is off. I have not got a clue why, because I haven't switched it off. It must be a technical issue, so if you can't see me, I can certainly see you. You can see me, can you?
Isn't it back on now?
All right, I got no clue how it was off because I haven't done anything different, but as long as I'm back on screen, I know you'd be thrilled. So there we are. Next question I got is Councillor Nigel Hunt, please. Nigel.
Councillor Hunt, you've muted yourself.
Yeah, you muted.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me now? I hope
I can hear you.
Yeah, the questions I asked in Cabinet Scrutiny pre-briefing, Charlotte suggested that I should send them an email to Howell, so I have now done that.
Okay, thanks for that.
Okay.
Anybody else got any questions on this item, please? No, I don't. Councillor Clennon, please.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I know that Councillor Nigel Hunt was following the advice that was given in his scrutiny. I'm just wondering whether the Director of Finance has received the email and is in a position to update us.
I didn't quite catch that, sorry, it broke.
Sorry, I'm just saying, I know that Councillor Nigel Hunt was following the guidance given in pre-scrutiny, and I'm just wondering whether the Director of Finance has received the request for information, is in any position to update us.
Right, I think that's Howell.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I had the email at about 1:30, and it asks, could I send details of both general reserves and net revenue expenditure for all or as many particularly neighbouring authorities as possible. I don't have the general reserves for other local authorities at all. I don't know where I could actually obtain that. In terms of net revenue budgets, that's on the Stats Wales website. So when I get the opportunity, I will try and download the net revenue budgets for Councillor Hunt and send that through. But I haven't got any details of other people's general reserves, and I'm not aware where I could get that information from.
Okay, thanks for that. Any other questions, please?
Please.
Sorry, Councillor Morgan. Yeah, Councillor Morgan, please.
Sorry, Chair, has Councillor Hunt finished with his question?
Yeah, actually, can I respond to Howell there? Would it be fair then, Howell, that we could work off the general reserves table that was sent to us from March 2019? Is that the most up-to-date general reserves for every local authority in Wales?
No, it changes all the time, so I don't know what table you're referring to. But if it's back in 2019, it will not be the current position. If you look at the position for Neath Talbot this year, you will have seen that on page 60 of the papers in front of you today, that when we set the budget back last March, the opening balance there was 19.1 million, with some various uses and potential incomes going into it, and then a contribution of 1.65 million to fund the general budget of for this year, and leaving with a projected balance of 17.8 million. But then when we actually closed the books at the end of March last year, and gone through the whole process and received all the grants and everything from Welsh Government, our actual closing balance is the same as the opening balance for this year, which is 19.9 million. So there's a lot of money that came in at the end of the year to actually finalise the accounts. So if that has happened in Neath Talbot, that will have been something that will have affected every other local authority from 2019 onwards. So I don't, I couldn't suggest you use that at all, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, will any of the other counties, or they will have to publish what their general reserves are, right? All counties have to publish what their general reserves are, so it would be available somewhere. But it might take a lot of searching. But we do have, every county has to publish their general reserves, yeah?
As part of their statement of accounts, they are required to do so. And as for Neath Talbot Council, we actually publish the latest position on our general and specific reserves at every budget monitoring report that comes in front of Cabinet and Cabinet Scrutiny, and it goes into the Audit Committee at the end of the year for the statement of accounts, and the final Cabinet meeting as well. So we publish it many places. I don't know, I haven't checked where other local authorities do it or how often, but their final statement of accounts for each year would have had that information, yes.
Okay. Can I ask one final question?
I don't want to dwell on this, it's going on a bit now. Just
one final question, Chair. What other counties would be comparative to ours? Bridgend, Swansea, would you say? Local, our neighbouring councils?
As you know, Swansea's population is, how can I say, in the former West Glamorgan, ours was 40%, and the Swansea is 60%, so they are larger in terms of size. I can't remember where the Bridgend population is, but no council is the same. The services and everything that they provide are statutorily the same, but the level they provide is different. So I can't answer that question at this point in time, Chair.
Yeah, I think with this it can be dealt with outside anyway, so we will move on. Councillor Crowley.
Yes. So Chair, I just want to follow up on this. I mean, it wasn't something I'd thought about before, to be honest, but I think it is important that we have comparative information, and I'm just wondering whether that point that Councillor Hunt raises, whether there should be some consistency between local authorities. Is it under SOPs? Statement of recommended practice. Is this something that's collated overall for information? Because we do need to have this comparative information. I mean, as I said, I commend all the work that our own financial officers are doing, but we should be able to have access. I'm just wondering if it's not readily to hand, how we identify that. Because I think it's a fair question by Nigel, and I would have thought that every authority should be preparing the information on a comparative basis, approved by Audit Wales or whatever, or SWAPs or whatever. It's
we all want good value for our
please, if you're going to come in, put your hand up. Okay. Mr. Jenkins, could you reply to Councillor Llewellyn, and then I'd like to move off on this, please. Mr. Jenkins.
Yeah, First of all, this report is about budget monitoring for Neath Talbot, and it highlights the position that we are projecting for the position to date and to the end of this financial year. It isn't a report which is actually considering anybody else's position, so it isn't something that I would normally be required to actually report at this time and in this position. So I'm sorry I can't be of more assistance there. In terms of the general scenario, that is something that, as you said, can be looked at outside this particular meeting.
Okay, thanks for that. And I move on. Councillor Del Morgan, you got your hand up, please.
Diolch yn fawr, thank you, Chair. Yes, I suppose as I'm also Chair of Audit, I need to think about our processes and procedures and perhaps our risk assessments and all those things, as well as the if you like, the decisions that we make. So my line of questioning, I've got 3 quick questions for the Director of Finance and Corporate Services, if I may. They go along the lines of just getting general information which relates to all of the items, I suppose 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12 on our agenda. So we've just been listening to some questions about reserves and all the rest of it. Can I check with the Director, is he comfortable with the planned level of our reserves at March 2022, the way they're being projected at the moment?
In terms of the calculations, they are the best estimate of where we are at the moment. And as I said, we've still got a couple of weeks to go before the year end, and there are processes then that we go through which are audited by Audit Wales to verify the accuracy of the accounts, and all of those will be taken into account as we progress over the next few months, with the aim of having all of our accounts for the current year signed off, hopefully by the end of July, if the COVID timelines allow that to happen. But as the Chair of the Audit Committee and all members are aware, we have never had a qualified audit report in terms of our accounts, as far as I can remember, or even in Neath Talbot days from '96, prior to my being in with the council. So I don't quite understand the question, but that's the information that I have to hand.
Well, I suppose I'm asking, should we be, as a council, looking at what we've been proposed to push through now as the budget for the coming year, then should we be comfortable with the way that we are pitching the level of our reserves at the end of the financial year? And perhaps I could supplementarily ask, should we or would we be comfortable, given the risk assessments and so on, with a level that would be even slightly reduced from that?
I think, Chair, this is to do with budget monitoring. When we come on to that particular item,
yeah.
I think we should consider that at that time.
Yeah, fine, I agree totally.
Okay, the only other thing I've got to ask then, Chair, is, and maybe this should come up at that point, but I mean, it applies to all budgeting issues. We are aware of what the council tax take has been in the county borough, and we've watched the figures fluctuate, I suppose, over the years, but they've always been quite good, I think. Is it the case the council tax take does tend to reduce as the level of council tax burden increases? Is that generally fair to say?
Mr. Jenkins?
I'm not sure what is meant by that. In terms of the last few years, in terms of council tax collection, the council has had one of the highest council tax collections in Wales. I think for last financial year we had the highest collection rates, and that was 98.1% collection in year. And the council tax team have been working extremely hard to both allow people to reprofile their instalments from early this year to the end of this financial year, as members have been informed previously, and to the end of February. We have collected 96.4% of council tax to date, with further instalments higher than normal due now during this particular month. So at the moment, that is the position, and whilst the council tax has increased slightly in each of the last 5 years, I'll come on to that later on, but in terms of the collections, they've been well in the upper 97s and rising to 98.1%, as I said last year. So the collection rates of council tax has been exceedingly good over the past 5 years.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Morgan. Two other indications, Councillor Sharon Freegard and Councillor Sandra Miller, please. Councillor Freegard.
Thank you, Chair. I'm all for comparative data, but I just want to clarify from Howell that from my understanding of what he said, this is not comparable. We cannot compare in this instance because there are too many variables within different councils. And so we just need to look at the reports which go to audit, which go to Welsh audit, which all pass through, and obviously we're not pushing anything through. We are recommending and we consider these details carefully. But from what I'm gathering, there is no comparable data that we can take or apply to ourselves with any other council in terms of reserves. Thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Jenkins, please.
I haven't been able to find the reserves position not available across the searches that I've made recently. So if I do come across them, then I will share them at that particular time. But at the moment, I haven't. But in terms of budget requirement, yes, that is collected. The council tax levels are collected, and they can be shared, but I haven't got them all to hand as I speak at this point in time.
Okay.
But what I'm trying to get over is we can't compare ourselves at this time, Mr. Howell.
Yes, when we come on to that particular item, I will respond at that time, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Sandra Miller as well, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Sharon has, made reference to what I wanted to say. However, for the benefit of others, if you want data from other councillors, then the Freedom of Information Act is still available, and I would suggest it be used. It can be a very good source of information going forward. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Llewellyn, you've had a fair go at this. I hope it's quick, please.
Yeah, I know. No, I'm just coming back on the point that Sandra made now. I know we can use freedom of information, but I can be weary sometimes when we're told, use freedom of information. This is information that should be freely available. Nobody should have to go through freedom of information to find out what the reserves position are of authorities. It should be information that's freely available, and it should be relatively simple, with a research capacity to find the comparative information. We shouldn't need to go through FOI, which takes 40 days, and you pay for the thing to be photocopied or whatever. That's just
leave it tomorrow.
Okay, I'll say yeah. Okay.
I'll leave it there, Chair.
Right, thank you. I don't see any other hands up on this subject, and obviously something we could look forward to do on this item with the forward work programme, so something to consider there. In respect to this recommendation, the recommendations on page 53 of the Cabinet papers, they're all listed there. Is anybody abstaining from the recommendation, please? No abstentions.
No recommendations, fine.
Okay, can I have a proposer and seconder for them, please?
I'll propose, Chair. Oh, I'll second then, Chair.
I'll second.
Thank you. Anybody against the recommendation, please?
Where am I?
No. I don't see any hands.
No, I was just going to say if anyone was, if they could just use their virtual hands, that's all.
Yeah, shove your hand up. No. So that recommendation goes to Cabinet as it stands. So that's item 7 covered, item 9 covered. Next item's item 11, the cap, which is the revenue budget 2021-2022 on the Cabinet papers. Unless officers got anything to add, in pre-scrutiny we had a number of indications for people wanting to ask questions on this. The first councillor is Councillor Suzanne Paddison, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. On the budget report, that the council will use 3.1 million to balance the budget next year from reserves. I was wondering if I could get some clarification in simple terms, because I know it needs to be simple for me, of what we mean by using reserves to balance the budget. And Chair, if you would allow me a follow-on question depending on the answer.
Okay, certainly. Mr. Jenkins, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, if I give you an example of what I think in personal terms we mean by reserves, they in our own personal lives would be the savings that we have put into a building society account or into a bank account where you have saved money for either a rainy day or for supporting one-off purchases that we have built up monies for. That's what the general reserves are. It's the arrangement, making sure that we have got sufficient monies to actually deal with the unexpected and with the big purchases that we would need or want to undertake in future. The council is no different. We need to have the ability of dealing with lots of unexpected measures. COVID has been a great example of that in the current year, as has been unexpected issues like flooding and emergency situations. So luckily this year, whilst the Welsh Government have said that they will fund the unexpected items from the hardship fund, but normally the first £613,000 of our work associated with any emergency work would have to be picked off fully by the council, which is 0.2% of our budget, along with a further 15% for anything over and above that 613,000 threshold. That's called the Emergency Financial Assistance Scheme that the Welsh Government has in place for dealing with issues. So these are the type of things that we have to manage throughout the year. Fluctuations in service levels, fluctuations in costs, fluctuations in pay awards, all of them have to be dealt with in year, and that's what the general reserves are there for, and that is how I would compare it with how you would deal with your own personal incomes and savings.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just come back with a very quick question? Thank you, Howell. That's very concise there. So using the same analogy then, in terms of someone's personal funds, if they did nothing about tackling their bills, in the end, they would have used up all their savings. Am I correct?
That could be the case, yes. If they don't actually ensure that they have got their spending and their income in line, usually on an annual basis, and only deal with the emergencies from their savings, then they could get into difficulty as they go into future years. If they keep spending more than what they get in, that's a problem. And the council is no different. We have to be careful and ensure that we have got sustainable budgets and sustainable processes to manage both our activity and our financial affairs as we go through each financial years.
Thank you, Howell. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that. And Councillor Sharon Freegard, please.
Oh, thanks, Chair. Howell, another question. In comparing this report to the draft proposal, how have you been able to reduce the proposed council tax from 3.75 to 2.75, please?
When we went out to the draft budget back on the 13th of January, you'll recall that we'd only just put the budget monitoring report to the end of November to that same meeting of a Cabinet and Scrutiny Committee. And at that time, the Welsh Government had indicated that they were only able to provide support up to a certain level, and our projected overspend back then was £2.5 million, and not the 1.2 million that is currently projected in the latest budget monitoring report, which we talked about in the previous item. So the Welsh Government have announced that they are giving us additional monies to support all the challenges around council tax support. We've had 727,000 for that. We have had further contributions towards council tax support as well of 603,000. They have confirmed that we can recover more monies in terms of our loss of income for up to December. All of that has resulted in more monies being available to us to go into the reserves to enable £3.1 million to be pulled from the reserves next year, and to reduce the council tax by the £770,000 and 1% that you mentioned in your question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Rydian Maes next, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, another quick one for you, Howell, please. Could you tell us how does Neath Talbot's council tax increase compared to other councils' council tax increase?
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the current year, my understanding is that most authorities have either just set their council tax for next year or are about to finalise it. And the information that I have seen to date suggests that we will be the second lowest increase in terms of the council tax for next year at 2.75%. I understand that RCT is likely to have the lowest at about 2.65%, and some other councils have declared theirs in between 3-4% and a few higher than that, Chair. But in terms of at what level the council tax is meant to be, that's a decision that this council has to make in order to ensure that we have got sufficient resources, not just for the current year, our coming financial year, but it is in the base budget to enable us to have a sustainable council going into future financial years. And you will have noted in the report that at the moment there is a projected forward financial gap of £49 million over the following 3 years if the UK and Welsh governments aren't able to increase the current level of financial support that they are providing, which is quite substantial. They provide just short of 75% of the funding towards running council services. That's equivalent to £236.68 million. And the 25% is the amount that the local council taxpayer contributes towards running council services. So there is quite a substantial amount of services that the council runs. In some instances, you could say that there's over 600 different elements of council services that we are responsible for and that we provide to the people and businesses across the county borough. And it's important that we manage them as effectively as we can, Chair.
Okay, very well.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Karen Clement-Williams put it in chat about switching the mics off because of feedback. I was just about to mention that as well. So if you're not speaking, please put your microphone off. And next person who's indicated he'd like to ask a question, Councillor Alan Llewellyn. Alan, please. Yeah, you're muted.
Yeah, am I unmuted?
Yes, you go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Good. Diolch yn fawr, Hywel, am y cyflwyniad. Thanks for the, for the introduction. What I'd like to say, first of all, at the outset, before I ask my first question, is that I hope that we have a thorough and respectful debate on the budget and council tax in full council meeting tomorrow. And whatever budget is eventually set, I want assurances that it will be fairly applied across the whole of the county borough, regardless of which ward or which political party represents those communities. Now I'll move on to my first question. I would like to follow on from the point that Dion made about the comparative increases proposed in council taxes, and I suppose I'd like to ask the other side of that balance, which is where the proposed council tax increase of 2.75% will leave us in comparison with other authorities about who has the highest council tax in Wales and was the highest council tax over the immediate neighbouring authorities, if these proposals go through as they are. Okay. I'll ask that question first, and with your permission, Chair, I'd like to come on to some other questions and comments after that, as I indicated in the pre-briefing.
Mr. Jenkins, please.
In terms of Neath Talbot, as councillors are aware, our council tax for this year is 1,615.59. That is the third highest in Wales. And as members are also aware, the reason for that goes back to 1996, when there was local government reorganisation, which resulted in 40% of the resources from the formula being made available to Neath Talbot to cover the former West Glamorgan and the district councils that were in being prior to 96, but with a higher cost base and liabilities being transferred to this particular area. That unfortunately resulted in a higher council tax in that first year. If I recall, just short of a 30% increase in that particular year. And in terms of the work done by this council, my understanding is that the decisions every year has been to actually try and get a little bit closer towards our standard spending assessment. That is certainly the case over the last 5 years, where we have had the second lowest increase in council tax, to try and get closer to that, resulting in the projected 9.8 million over SSA that is currently in the budget report for members to see today and tomorrow.
So Chair, we are talking about a situation that has been with us for a quarter of a century, since 1995, 1996. And I'm just showing my age. I was actually a member of this authority at that time. And that has not been resolved in all of those years. And it is the responsibility of the, slightly political here, the Welsh Labour government to change or to address that budget formula to ensure that areas that have considerable deprivation are not being unduly affected by a formula that was set by the Conservative government at that time, before devolution, before the Welsh government was established, and we made so little progress. Now, as it happens, this year, we can welcome that there are no new actual budget cuts being proposed. I think it's probably unique in the past 10 years of austerity. So surely there is an opportunity for a reset. Our residents, our communities have suffered so much in the past year, in the time of COVID. And I think that this authority is on bound to look again at the council tax rates that are proposed in the budget. Now, my own group, the Plaid Cymru group, we're still looking at the figures. We are looking at proposals that we'll bring to tomorrow's council meeting to try to ensure that we can release the suffering as much as possible on our people and our communities. And we hope that the Cabinet this afternoon, after this scrutiny session, will do the same. We haven't got a specific amendment to propose this afternoon, because we are hoping that the Cabinet will listen to the points that are being made and will bring forward a lower level of council tax that will be acceptable for us to support tomorrow. So we really want the Cabinet, the purpose of scrutiny is to, ask Cabinet to look again at these things. So, we hope that will be the case following the scrutiny committee. I would like to ask, I'm grateful for all the information that is provided this afternoon, to say to us, the question that Del Morgan asked earlier on in the meeting. We are looking now at a level of, because there is a transfer of 1.2 million from the end of the current financial year into the next financial year, what impact is that having on the proposed level of reserves and the proposed level of council tax? But I think people are looking to us to be able to do what we can to support them in the communities during this extraordinary and unique, and I hope it will be unique, because we don't want another year like we've had in 2020 to 2021. I leave the question there, but I'd like the Director of Finance to come back to us on that. Thank you.
Okay, Sir Jenkins, please.
Yeah, I think I partly answered this question already by saying that the projected closing balance on the reserves for this year has increased to 19.845 million. The table, I'm just looking for it at the moment so that I've got it in front of me, on page 132 of your papers today, which is Appendix 6 on the General Reserves, is showing that the opening balance for 21-22 is 19.845 million, same as we had in the previous report. And with the projected use of £3.1 million worth of general reserves to underpin the budget for 21-22, as per the report, along with some of those other items that are shown in the table, means that the projected reserves as at 31st of March 22 will reduce to £16.86 million. So the council is already building that in, and by using £3.1 million, you're basically using a substantial percentage of the general reserves to actually underpin it. And in terms of going forward, may I read something that in terms of using general reserves, we have to be mindful of. And this is an extract from an article that Mr. Rob Whiteman, who is the Chief Executive Officer of CIPFA, the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, who are the experts in local government, wrote on the 2nd of April 2020. And I'll read an extract from that particular article. It's more a case of saying, well done to the many that told you so, to the few. But if recent weeks have not put paid forever to the foolishness of raiding reserves to balance day-to-day spending, then nothing will. As CIPFA always advises, once you spend them, they are gone. Local authorities have experienced often massive cuts to their budgets, and councils have been sensible to seek to replenish their reserves where they can. However, at a time when local authorities have experienced devastating cuts to their budgets, they are not being replenished to the extent that is needed. Dipping further into reserves for anything but emergencies leaves councils vulnerable to financial shocks. We have now entered one such shock, and this relates to the COVID pandemic, as I said, because this is 2nd of April 2020. And the instinct of many councils not to plunder their reserves over recent years has been entirely vindicated by the arrival of this most rainy of rainy days. And I'm highlighting that particular issue for council, Cabinet today, and it's really a message for council tomorrow, that if you take too much money out of general reserves in 1 year, my question to you is, what are you going to do? Which activities, which services are you prepared to actually reduce for the following financial year, because you can't carry on with that strategy. It has to be a strategy that has got looks at the sustainability of Neath Talbot, not just for one financial year, but for future financial years. And the forward financial plan is already saying if there's no money coming from anywhere else, from Welsh Government, from UK governments, then we have got a £49 million challenge over the following 3 years. And that's the challenge that we have to consider each and every year when we come forward and look at the budget. And at the moment, during the past few months, as officers, we haven't had any proposals from members to say these are the areas that we are prepared to actually look at to reduce, etc. And that is why I am comfortable at the moment in terms of putting forward proposals to set the budget for 21-22, that it is on the basis of we do this analysis starting in April to look at what the forward financial plan looks like going beyond April 22, but we can actually manage it appropriately over the next 12 months. In addition, of course, whilst it is welcome that the Welsh Government have put in 206.6 million into a local authority hardship fund to cover COVID next year, we don't know how long COVID is going to be with us and how that is going to have an impact on our overall finances as we go into next financial year. So the amount that we may need to pull from reserves might be higher than the 3.1 million that is currently set out in the budget report. So all of these are issues that as a Section 151 officer, I have to bear in mind in coming up with a sustainable budget strategy, not just for 2021, 21-22, but also to think about what's going to happen in future years. And I'm trying to use that as the basis of the proposals that as officers we are putting forward to members to consider in setting next year's budget.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair,
Councillor.
for that reply. I'll say very, very briefly, I appreciate everything that Howell says because I respect him very much, the work that he does. He's very welcome to send me a copy of that article. But obviously, as he says, during that quote from that article, more or less, that reserves are there for a rainy day. Well, for our communities and our residents, it's been metaphorically tipping down all year, and I think we have to keep that in mind. You know, we'll listen to the rest of the debate this afternoon, obviously, and we'll listen to questions that come. But I think we made the point that Cabinet need to take into account, and as it stands, our group, the Plaid Cymru Group, will not be supporting the recommendation this afternoon. We'll be voting against the recommendation this afternoon, but we will be waiting to see what the Cabinet reflects on before we formally present our amendment tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. We've got a few more indications. I can see three. Councillor Steve Hunt, Councillor Suzanne Paddison and Councillor Nigel Hunt. I'll start with Councillor Steve Hunt, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and be brief. I can understand both arguments from Councillor Llewellyn and the respect shown to Howell, and I take on board everything Howell has said. I'm not speaking on behalf of the whole Independent and Democratic group this afternoon, as there's obviously a bit of a difference of opinion on the budget proposals, but I am speaking on behalf of the majority of the Independent and Democratic group, when tomorrow we would have been putting forward an amendment originally, but we are mindful of what the authority has done in listening through the consultation process to the majority of responses to the council tax, and our proposal would have been the 2.75. Now that has been met, and we all can appreciate, and even Councillor Llewellyn has mentioned, the budget itself is a good budget. There will no longer be a need for us to put an amendment forward tomorrow, and we will be supporting the budget this afternoon recommendations and the recommendations tomorrow. I will go into a little bit more detail with a bit of a longer speech tomorrow, because there are things that you need to highlight. You mentioned today the historical reasons, Howell, and as Councillor Llewellyn says, we really do need to move away from that, and make no mistake, I have the utmost respect what the Cabinet Member for Finance, the leader and Cabinet and members of this council, and certainly officers, in going to Welsh Government to try and get the best settlements. Now, whether that is something that's the way forward for this authority to continue the lobbying, I know we do with the unions and others, but we have to address, as a matter of urgency, the third highest council tax in Wales. And I think it should be one of our priorities without affecting frontline services and jobs. Of course, I think we all here today and all tomorrow will understand that the council has to function in a productive way, that frontline services and jobs are protected going forward. So therefore, as I said, I'll speak a little bit longer tomorrow with a lot of issues that I want to address, but it's not in a negative way. It's in a way that I think council should listen to, but I have listened to Howell and what the consultation has thrown out, and this council has listened to that as well. So I thank them for that, and lowering the council tax to 2.75. And finally, Chair, I will touch on one thing. I also carried out a consultation only on the council tax, and I had over 30,000 requests and information. And the majority of those that came to my consultation wanted a 0% council tax rise. So as Howell has pointed out, that obviously would never be achievable. It probably go a long way in really destroying the ethical and the practice of the authority in a way that it should maintain its structure. So I think the majority of people who understand that was not a reasonable request. However, maybe Councillor Llewellyn is right that there could be a little bit more leeway, but that's politics, Chair. But our amendment would have been the 2.75, and as that now is being proposed, we will be supporting the recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for those comments. And then I got two more hands up. Firstly, Councillor Susan Paddison, and then Councillor Lynette Purcell, please. Councillor Paddison, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add to the debate, and Alan Llewellyn said right at the very beginning, we wanted a respectful, and this is respectful debate. We can have differences of opinion and still remain polite. I do hear what Councillor Llewellyn has said, but in his plea to reduce the council tax, he said he hoped that next year would be better than this year. But that's the very point. We don't know, and things could get an awful lot worse. So I think it's only prudent to listen to our financial officer and keep the reserves at a reasonable level. Even he says, you know, by quoting that article, some councils are not able to do that. So we don't know what's around the corner. There could be landslips, floods, COVID could get 10 times worse. We just don't know. So I think it's prudent to listen to him, follow the advice, and stick with the 275 that we have outlined. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. I got two other late indications. Councillor Lynette Purcell first, then Councillor Nigel Hunt, please. Councillor Purcell.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to support what Councillor Llewellyn had said, and also to point another idea into the melting pot, that we sincerely hope that the restrictions are going to gradually be lifted. When those restrictions gradually are lifted, we hope and pray that our local businesses, and so many of us, like Nigel Hunt I'm looking at now, myself representing Pontedour, so many of us support areas where there are independent traders desperate to start trading again. The more we can reduce the council tax, the more money people are going to have in their pockets to be able to stimulate the local economy when, God willing, the restrictions are raised. So that is another reason, I think, why we have to look to being able to reduce the council tax burden as much as we possibly can. It's literally invest to save. We think of the consequences of these businesses going out of business. We think of the unemployment, we think of the people coming to social services for support. Anything we can do to avoid this becoming any worse than it already is worth considering. And finally, we all know the reasons why, after, what was it, a quarter of a century, that we are still in this position of having this comparatively very high council tax rate. But the general public do not understand that. The fact that over 1,000 of them, and if Steve is to be believed, over 30,000 responded to him, the reason why this massive number of people have responded is because it hurts them. It hurts them in their pocket, and we want those pockets opened and free to be investing in our local businesses. So I just wanted to add that extra dimension. The more money people have, the more they will be able to spend, and we as a local economy will benefit. Thanks.
Okay, the comments no doubt are noted by Cabinet. Then we got Councillor Nigel Thomas Hunt, and then Councillor Sonia Reynolds, please. Councillor Hunt, Nigel, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say that I concur with Councillor Alan Llewellyn in his comments. I think that I understand about risk and sustainability, but the council taxpayers of Neath, Talbot, of this county, have, for a sustained 25-year period now, paid higher council tax than all the neighbouring counties, whether that be Swansea, Carmarthenshire, Rhondda Cynon Taf, Powys, Bridgend. It's always us with the highest council tax. And I think that has to stop, quite frankly. We have to look at our reserves and we have to see whether we are giving value for money to our council taxpayers. And the fact that we've got higher reserves than all the rest of the counties, we really should be considering that. And I think we should have more empathy with our residents in a year when there's been torrential rain. It hasn't been a rainy day. And I think we all should have more empathy. So I can't agree with a 2.75% rise in council tax. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Councillor Sonia Reynolds, please.
I wanted to ask Hal about the availability of support for those who may be struggling to pay their council tax. I think there is, we are going to see a number. We know that more people are going to be going for the support available. We know that more people are already on universal credit than there have, we've had in previous years because of what's happened this last year. My empathy for them as someone who runs a food bank is extreme. However, we know there's relief out there, and I wondered what Hal could tell me about what's available and the levels of it, please.
Okay, Mr. Jenkins, please.
Yeah, thank you. Well, in terms of the budget, on page 113 of the papers, it shows the total amount of money being made available for council tax support. As you can see, this year it's 18.7 million, rising to 19.8 million pounds for next year. So an extra £500,000 on top of the other pressures on the budget has been included. In total, that's over £1.1 million in total being added into that particular budget line for next year. That is supporting probably 17,500 council taxpayers out of 64,000 properties across the county borough with regard to their council tax, and over 12,000 residents will have full financial support towards their council tax. And the other 5.5 are probably on getting partial support because their earnings and their income levels allows them to make some contribution towards the council tax with a lower, a higher proportion coming from the council. What I also need to highlight that in the particular report, whilst we have to declare what the band D value is for council tax in Neath Talbot, and that is the proposed £1,660 that is mentioned. The report also mentions that about 80% of our properties are in the 3 lowest bands, bands A, bands B, and bands C of the council tax regime. And for those at band C, it's about 1,457, where there are 2 adult paying householders in that particular house that pay. But on average then, where there are only a single person in that household, there is a further 25% discount applied to the council tax, not just here in Neath Talbot, that is the scheme across the whole of the country. So the amount that people are having to pay is the majority of people in Neath Talbot, or about 80% of the people, pay less than the 1,457 that is mentioned for Bandia. And whilst that the 2.75% is applied to every band, I just wanted members to be aware that in Neath Talbot, our ratio of council taxpayers is mainly in bands A through to C, That isn't the case in many other, in all councils then across the whole of Wales. Others have got different number of properties in different bands, and they have to contribute based on whatever the band value is for their particular homes. So I just wanted to clarify that for members as well.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Jenkins.
Can I come back, Chair?
Yeah, briefly.
And just ask, yeah, very quickly, and just ask, assuming we will be promoting it as we usually do every year, and our welfare advisors will be able to direct people in that direction.
Yes, it's open to all the applications, and as I've mentioned previously, we've processed an additional 500 applications already during this financial year. They will continue to be entitled to it during the next financial year. We're hoping that as recovery occurs and people are able to get back into and earning their full potential in terms of their earnings, that will improve, and they will be able to have better incomes to support their households as they progress through the second half of this year.
Okay, Sonia, yeah, see you nodding. Thanks for that. Next indication of Councillor Del Morgan, please, Del.
Thank you, Chair. Earlier on, I did ask some questions about the relative risk involved in the proposed budget strategy. Can I please make a plea? This coming year, look, 2021-22, more people will be losing their jobs, and more people will come under severe financial pressures, won't they? Far more than usual. So can we please go the extra mile this year and act in a way that sort of reflects the dire situation facing so many of our residents? I will leave it in those simple words, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that. And lastly, Alan, you've been in once, keep it brief, please. Councillor Alan Llewellyn. Yeah, very brief, Chair. Just following up from the point that Sonia raised, can they're very relevant points. Can the members? I'm sure it'll be out on the council's social media, but can members be sent the relevant links for the source of support for council taxpayers, so we can, circulate that as much as possible in our own, social media and community group social medias and so on, so that we let people know what support is available. I know this, we're going to support people as much as we can, but I have to say in conclusion, to a contribution to the debate, that I and colleagues will still be reluctantly voting against this proposal this afternoon, because we think that much more needs to be done to support people. We hope the Cabinet takes that on board, and we will consider the deliberations of Cabinet and make our formal proposals tomorrow. But we'd be grateful if those links in terms of financial support for everyone can be circulated in the meantime. Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Jenkins. Okay, I can't. How well you muted?
Yeah, sorry about that. I wasn't sure if I needed to respond to that particular statement, Chair. But if there was anything that I, in terms of the council tax support, yes, we will give the links to the members, and that's already available on the council tax website. And as I just said, we've had 500 applications more this year than in previous years, and they have been processed, and we will continue to provide the appropriate support that is needed to the residents in relation to this issue. Okay, thanks. I've been presumptuous of me to say you'd send the links. I'm asking you first. So there we are. Okay, any other indications? Thanks for that, Chair. Okay, thank you. Any other indications, or anybody else want to speak on this item, please? No, I don't see them. In respect to this, the recommendations are page 109, 110.
Could I have a proposer and seconder for
I
the
propose,
recommendation?
Chair.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second, Chair.
Okay, in respect to this item, I think that we vote on it because I can see, Councillor Leclerc has indicated that his group will be voting against it. So to start off, Charlotte, if you could take the vote. Any abstentions on this recommendation, please? Could I have show of hands for abstentions? Charlotte, I see no hands.
Yeah, Chair.
Okay. And could I have show of hands for the recommendations as they stand to go to Cabinet, please?
Chair, do you want to do against?
Do against, sorry. Okay. If you put your hands down. My hand gone down. Yeah, mine's gone. All hands are down, Charlotte. Do you want to take it, Charlotte?
You're almost voting against there, Chair. You're welcome to it.
If we could just then, Chair, if we could just have hands of those members that are voting against, please.
I'm not sure, Chair, whether Councillor Nigel Hunt has heard the. He's got his hand up, but not the virtual hand.
I'm voting against.
Okay, if Councillor Hunt's hand could be included as well, Charlotte, please.
Yeah. Sorry. So Councillor Nigel Hunt, that is it?
Yes. Yes, me.
Yes.
Yeah. So just to confirm, I don't know whether my hands that are showing are a bit slow, but currently all I've got is Councillor Llewellyn and Councillor Nigel Hunt.
And
I can
Councillor Purcell, Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, you can see Del Morgan.
Come through now.
I think Councillor Net has her hand up.
That is not me joining in. I've raised my hand.
And there is a dog in the background.
Yeah.
Also joining in, and
Yeah,
that makes
dogs
4
right there.
votes, 1 for each paw.
So just to confirm, I've got 4 against. There's no abstentions.
Is that all? Is that all?
No abstentions, and you've got the hands up there, plus
All the council rise.
hands up there now as well.
Yes.
And Charlotte.
Where's the empathy?
Charlotte, don't mix Councillor Hunt up with the good-looking one, if you don't mind.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, so just to confirm, I've got 4 against, no abstentions. Therefore, the rest are 4. I'm happy to count them if you want me to.
Where's the empathy, eh?
Okay. If those voted against, put their hands down. Do we need to have a show of hands for?
No, if everyone's happy that we've got no abstentions, that there's only 4 against, then Chair, if you're happy, we'll take it then that the rest are 4. So that means then that the recommendation's gone through.
Okay.
Chair, could I invite Councillor Nigel Hunt to put his hand down?
Yeah, we're not taking a vote anyway. Nigel Hunt, your hands
It's a bit strong.
Okay, thanks for that. So that recommendation goes as it stands to Cabinet for tomorrow. So thanks for that. Then next item we decided to scrutinise was item 12, Treasury Management. At pre-scrutiny on this, we had 2 indications to speak. And the first one's Councillor Alan Llewellyn, please. Alan?
Thanks, Chair. It's just a quick question, really, because obviously we've got the report in front of us, but we know that Treasury management and also income generation is very important in trying to support our budget and our work as a council. I'd just like to invite a commentary from Howell or his colleagues on what do we think the indications are for the rate of inflation during the course of the year, and how will that affect our treasury management strategy? That is, I mean, in some senses, I guess we could gain from inflation on investments, but on the other hand, we could lose in terms of additional financial pressure. So I'm wondering if Howell could give us a comment on that.
Okay, Mr. Jenkins, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, paragraph 50, which is on the bottom of page 170, top of page 171, gives an indication of what the probable impact on investment interest is going to be for the this year, 2021, going through to 24-25, and as you can see, that the probable returns there are 0.1% for the next 3 years, rising to probably 0.25 in 24-25, and then they think hopefully it'll get back into normal from 25 onwards. That's the Treasury advisors' sort of view of how interest rates could apply over the next few years. So interest rates are quite low during this period. In terms of inflation, as you know, we've built in 1% into our estimates for pay awards for both teaching and non-teaching staff. The demand for pay award is probably going to be higher than that, and there will be that will be resolved with negotiations elsewhere. And of course, the government target is to continue to keep inflation at or around 2% over time. But at the moment, it's much lower than that as we speak. So at the moment, I think inflation is higher than the investment interests that we've got here. But most of our loans that we have got in place are for long term. They're over 40 to 50 years, with the mainly with the PWLB and with some of the other areas mentioned in the report. So our fluctuations isn't on what's happened in the past. Our more challenging issues is what interest rates are going to apply from now on to actually support our capital programme and the funding we need to underpin the capital programme going forward. And I'm just trying to check that particular value. It's set out in the report in one of the tables. It's the capital financing requirement is on page 164 in the table on the top of 164, suggesting that we have underborrowed 64.9 million as at the end of this year, with a further 15 million required for next year. By not borrowing, it doesn't cost us anything in interest to actually furnish our debt. If we do need to borrow, then the interest rate that applies at that point in time will apply. And as you can see on the table on page 166, a 5-year debt is predicted at the moment to be 0.8%, rising up to perhaps 0.9 by the end of March 22. And 50-year debt at the moment is 1.3%. Again, that could increase to about 1.4 by March 22. So those sort of interest rates will have an impact on our capital programme, but we have built them into our Treasury management budget that was approved not approved, was supported to go to Cabinet in the previous reported item. And we will be managing of our overall Treasury management, capital financing and interest through that arrangement following Council consideration and approval tomorrow.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. We could just thank Howell for that update, and obviously it just shows actually. I mean, not so much for us as local government, because we have to follow the constraints that are on us. But you know, in terms of various levels of central government, the opportunities that might have been lost to have a tremendous investment in infrastructure and capital projects while interest rates were so low, and we're beginning to see them going back up again now. you know, it's been such a missed opportunity by central government to really, you know, get the country back on its feet.
See, this relates to our government, though.
And I think as local authorities, we're doing our best, and I appreciate the report from Howell. I particularly like the report on the 40 years, and I will ask Howell in 40 years' time how it's panned out.
Yeah, let's hope he's still here. I'm going to live till I'm 101. There we are. Okay.
I'll diary note it, you know.
Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, next indication from Councillor Arwyn Wilcock, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this question again is looking forward, Chair, to Mr. Jenkins. It's going back to the Chancellor's budget last week, when he made an announcement of an additional £740 million for Wales. And we saw the reaction of the Finance Minister in Wales, Rebecca Evans, that not a penny of that was capital. And of course, she expressed concern as to how that would affect projects such as the Ban B 21st Century Schools. I was going to ask this question at the seminar last week, but I thought it was coming a bit too quick because the budget was only the day before. Have you had an opportunity to have a look at that and see what sort of impact that will have on our capital project, particularly perhaps the Ban B 21st Century Schools?
As far as I'm aware, Chair, we have put forward initial plans for £80 million worth of investment through Band B, and as you know, the first investment on that to do with the Kevin Syson School has been delivered during COVID and is due to open, and that's in one of the previous reports, in June, 3 months before the beginning of the new term for children in that school, on budget, and that was £29 million. Some of the other projects in the capital programme as well are reflected earlier and are included within that £80 million worth of package. So as far as I'm concerned, the fact that there hasn't been any additional announcements from the UK government to Cardiff last week in the budget, the Chancellor's budget, shouldn't really have an impact on that particular Band B strategy, but it could have an impact on what Welsh Government may want to do with either extending it for further bands of investment or for other projects. I don't think it impacts on 21st Century Schools as far as I'm aware at this point in time.
Okay, thanks for that.
Thanks for that, Chair. I mean, I was just asking the question because she did specifically mention her concern about the school's investment. So, yeah, okay, that's fine, Mr. Jenkins. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wilcock. Okay, any other any councillors with any further questions on this item, please, if you could indicate using your hand.
Councillor Purcell has their hand up, Chair.
Sorry, I missed that. Councillor Purcell, please. Oh no, it's just come up on my. Thank you. Lynette, I think you're muted.
Sorry, that was an accidental hand. It's being lowered. Thank you.
Right, I didn't see it anyway. Okay, I don't see any other indications. No. Okay, with this item 12, the recommendation is on page 175. Could I have a proposer for the recommendation, please?
I move, Chair.
A seconder?
I'll second, Chair.
Okay, any abstentions? No, I don't see any. Anybody against the recommendation, please? No. Nobody against. Well, that recommendation goes to Cabinet as it stands. Then the urgent items. Charlotte, are there any urgent items, please?
No, Chair, we haven't got any urgent items.
Okay.
I'm just going to the agenda. And prior to urgent items, Chair, it's just the forward work programme for scrutiny, which is just for voting.
Yeah, I was going to come to that on the cabinet scrutiny papers.
Sorry, I jumped.
Forward work programme for noting, and I say there are no urgent items. Can I thank myself, Howell and the team for the work they've done in respect of this budget, and this year has been probably one of the hardest. The work they've had to do with the COVID. And latterly with skewing with the grants, there's been a huge amount of work, and they've reacted and they've done a brilliant job. So from myself and obviously from everybody here, I think we'd all like to say thanks to Howell and the team. And I say that all it remains me to do is thank everybody for attending today and for the civil way in which this meeting's been conducted. So thank you all, and stay safe, and hopefully see you soon. So thank you.